The Fujifilm X100V is a pretty special camera, so let's talk about a few things I love about it, and since no camera's perfect, maybe some things I hate. Stick around. What's going on, everyone? Seth and Miranda here, coming from my studio here in Manhattan, and the X100V is a camera I shout out constantly, and people always ask me about it, and there's various versions of it. From over the years, the X100, the X100S for second, X100T for third, X100F for fourth, and then this is the V for fifth. And I talk about this camera a lot because it's one of these cameras that no matter what else I'm shooting, this always goes in the bag. I really do enjoy this camera from the fact that it's a small footprint in my bag. The experience of using it is different. Wait, I'm getting ahead of myself. I do these off the top of my head in one shot, so let me break down what this camera even is, and then we'll talk about why that's so special. So this is a digital mirrorless camera. However, it is a fixed lens with an optical viewfinder that can also be an EVF, electronic viewfinder, or it can be a mix of both. It is a rangefinder style camera. So you do have that optical window with a framing line, a guideline in there for you to check out your focus point and what's in the frame, and then a little bit of what's extra around it, which is part of the fun of like a rangefinder to me, is that you're seeing a little bit more than the frame itself. Like in a DSLR or mirrorless or whatever, when you put the viewfinder to your eye, that's your frame, and you're not really seeing more than that. A rangefinder lets you kind of, edit that frame a little bit on the fly because you're able to see what's going on. If you've ever seen me shoot live, a lot of the times I look crazy because I'm shooting with two eyes. I shoot with both eyes open. And the reason I do that is once I have my shot established and I'm shooting it, my other eye is already looking for where I'm going to go. And it's a little crazy for most people to do, I find, but it's a habit of mine. I'm a long time in this game, and that's really just how I shoot. So having a rangefinder kind of gives you that in one eye. You kind of have like the extra frame. It's a lot of fun. If you've never tried it, I suggest you get a rangefinder in your hand and give it a shot for like a day or so. The thing that's really cool about this is not just the EVF, which might be the only one of its kind to have a hybrid optical and EVF, but what also makes this camera special is it's got a leaf shutter. So the leaf shutter is something we don't see out there so much anymore. Right now, all we talk about is like mechanical versus electronic, focal plane shutter versus rolling shutter, silent shutters, or trying to get to a global shutter. But we don't really hear too much about leaf shutter, which you usually find in some medium format and definitely in large format systems. But here it's in the palm of your hand. And what leaf shutter allows you to get is, well, the flash sync is basically not an issue anymore. Like it's not even a thing anymore, right? So with focal plane shutters, the way it works is the shutter opens and then it chases behind itself to close. And then your flash is staying in sync with the window it has open to get a flash through that focal plane. Now, when the shutter speed gets fast enough, it opens, and before it even gets even halfway up or whatever, a partial of the way up, the second part of the blade comes and starts going along the shutter, or the other way, whatever, you get the point. Goes up, comes out, and then already chases it, which means there's only like a sliver of a window that's running along your sensor. Well, for the flash to stay in sync with how little that exists, it has to pulsate at high speed sync. Flash, 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 instead of flash. With leaf shutter, you don't deal with the sensor not being actually exposed. It's closing within itself. So because of that, you get a lot of leeway on the flash sync, meaning the fastest shutter speed you can use while using strobe. With some cameras, you have as fast as like 1/25th, 1/60th, 1/80th of a second, 1/200th of a second, 1/250th has become like a standard to hit for most higher performing cameras. And now we're looking at a 400th of a second in some cameras. But for a leaf shutter, you're looking at 1/2000th of a second being able to be used while using a strobe, being able to shoot with a shutter speed that fast while using a strobe. And that's really cool to have in something like this. And that's one of the reasons I call this like the Swiss Army knife of cameras, because it actually is so versatile. And one of the other things that's crazy versatile about it, it's got a built-in actual mechanical ND filter that will go over the lens when you hit the button. I did a video on Adorama TV for the X100V. It was basically like our love letter to that camera. So I'm gonna be inserting clips here and there from that video, but I will leave the link to it down below. Now, what's cool about this is, let's say you're at a wide open aperture, you've got that shallow depth of field going, and it's just way too much light because it's blazing sunlight, and you're already maxed out at a 4,000th of a second. Don't worry about it. Push the button and you've got 4 stops knocked back of light, which still lets you keep your super shallow depth of field if you want it, and you don't have to worry about it being overexposed. This is also very cool for video functionality because you're usually stuck at a certain shutter speed for video work. Usually the shutter speed is twice the frame rate. So if you're shooting like, 30 frames a second, your shutter speed is stuck at a 60th, which is pretty slow, which can let a lot of light in. That's a built-in ND filter, which is awesome. Now, what also makes this camera versatile is it has a little built-in flash, which I know you're gonna think is like, are you kidding me, Seth? And I'm gonna tell you, you know what? In a pinch, when you're shooting in sunlight and you just need a little bit of a fill light, it's there. I just have it. And it also has the shoe, which you guys have seen me use with speed lights and studio strobes. I love using them with this camera. It's so much fun. This camera is just so much fun. And more than not, I leave it in black and white. This is like my BTS camera. This is the camera I shoot black and white with while I'm shooting the job with color on my Z9 or the GFX 100S or something. This is the camera that I know is always there. Now, one of the things I wish this camera did, which drives me crazy that it doesn't, right now at the time of recording this video, it doesn't tether. At least I'm finding it doesn't tether. And I know that sounds crazy for a camera that probably people think of as like the walk around camera, the street camera, the low profile, you're out there and go camera. Yeah, well, I want to use it in the studio and I want to tether. So let me tether with this thing, okay? That can be fixed. I mean, further down the line, they can talk to Capture One or something like that and just make it tetherable. Actually, maybe it is tetherable in Lightroom. I don't know. If anyone knows, let me know. I'm a Capture One guy if you didn't catch that drift. I will say, if you are wanting to save a few bucks, getting the X100F as opposed to the V could save you some money. The differences are not that huge, but they are significant if you want them. The biggest one being the lens. This is a 23mm f2 lens. It'll be the same lens on the 100F, but the corners on the 100F are a little bit like softer. It's a more of an organic feeling lens. This is definitely a corner to corner, edge to edge sharper lens, without a doubt. But if you like that less clean look, the 100F will get you that kind of look a little bit more. Not saying it's like blurry or something, but it's definitely a difference I find in the lens for sure. The other thing is this does have a flip out screen, which some people don't care about. And if you don't, boom, don't worry about it. You can save some money. The ND filter I mentioned on the 100F is 3 stops. This one is 4 stops. That I do find a big difference. The extra stop is actually kind of nice in my opinion. And that's probably why they went with an extra stop of ND. And it's really nice that it's mechanical, by the way, and not electronic. Because a lot of electronic NDs for still cameras are what they're doing is taking like multiple shots to make it work rather than the shot itself. It's not always so clean. So the mechanical, huge plus. But both cameras are basically the same feel. You get the same kind of menus and everything like that. I think you get like a couple more film simulations in this one. Another thing I love about this camera is that I can charge in body, which isn't anything new nowadays, but it is pretty awesome to just take this on a trip with me or throw it in my bag and just know if I just throw this on the charger when I get back to a hotel, I'm good to go tomorrow. And that I love. I love this camera for just being so small and easy. Just nothing feels like a heavy lifting and you just have so much fun with it. It's one of these cameras that I just don't feel like I'm working. And I guess that's one of the reasons I love it so much. And as far as the fixed lens goes, it's still versatile in that regard because you can get stuff like add-on lenses that are wider or more telephoto. I go with the telephoto myself, but there is a pain in the neck to this. This is the one thing I wish they could change a little bit. So you have to unscrew this ring in the front of your lens very carefully, and then hopefully not lose it. Don't bang up the threads and then screw on those lenses to this. And then if you're shooting and you go, oh, you know what, I want to change lenses, it's not quick. You have to sit there and screw it off. And then don't forget this thing, because if you lose it, oh, that's the thing, you know? So I kind of wish there was a system where maybe it was like, this ring, not the lens, but this ring was magnetic, because all it is a cover, right? To keep the threads from getting damaged. If it was maybe like magnetic, I could just pop it on and off really easily, or if it was a clutch system that like pulled back or something like that and revealed the threads, that'd be really cool. But I mean, I am nitpicking here, guys. I don't care that much, but there definitely has been situations where I put the telephoto converter on and I'm like, and then I'm sitting there unscrewed for a second. So keep that in mind if that's something that you're going to be wanting to fly through lenses on the really quick with this. But I think when you pick up this camera or you get into a camera like this that's already have a fixed lens, your headspace is already in the idea of, oh, I'm doing this as a lens, you know. The other thing that maybe if you want to call it a drawback, and I really don't think it is, and I'm going to make a case for it, there's no stabilization in the camera mechanically. So you can get camera shake out of this thing. Like, it's back to shooting the way you did before we had IBIS. Now, this keeps the camera smaller and lower profile because there's need to actually have the mechanism there or the room for the sensor to move, but you are susceptible to camera shake. I, for one, think that's great. It's crazy to say this, but I think it's great because it makes it that much more organic of a camera. Anybody that's been to like photo school, you have that junky camera when you start out and you take that roll of Tri-X, remember those days? And you got that organic shake to your images. Like, you kind of get that with this, like doing that fast shooting on the street and showing the shake, and maybe it's not the sharpest image, but it still works. Or maybe the blurriness works for the image. Like, I don't know, like you can always make camera blur show up, right? You can always make shake show up, right? It's just interesting to have this, to not have the crutch of IBIS. I don't know, maybe I'm romanticizing this camera, but it definitely feels like a photographer's camera, 100%. Maybe the other thing I would say is it is only a single card slot, but that's not a deal breaker for me. I go into this just thinking, all right, I'm just shooting with it. You know, I don't, you know, when people cry about one card slot, I'm not one of those people. I'm really not. So it wasn't a factor for me, but if I had to start picking things, maybe that, but I'm reaching. I have a hard time finding reasons not to pick up this camera, not to throw it in my bag, not to keep it around, you know, my neck. Is that what you do with the strap? You keep it around your neck, over your shoulder? I have a problem not keeping it over my shoulder for when I'm doing easier jobs or helping out somebody on their set. I just kind of want to take this camera around. I took this to my sister's wedding, you know, things like that. It gives us all the stuff as a photographer you would want to play with, and enough versatility to not hold back your creativity. It's built amazing. The battery life is good. The image quality is fantastic. I probably should have named this video like reasons I love this camera. There's just so many little things in this camera that you will discover as you use it that will make you like it more and more and more. And it's definitely the camera that no matter what system you shoot, you will appreciate this camera, or it will even get you interested in Fujifilm as a brand to go check out the rest of their systems, like I did with the GFX 100S that I shoot with now alongside with my Nikons, right? So there's a lot to be said for this. The film simulations are a lot of fun. And like I said, I leave it on black and white, and I tend to lean it onto Acros on the yellow filter setting. And then you can actually adjust the shadow and highlight in the camera as well. So I can kind of get it in the ballpark of how I like my grayscale, because I'm like psychotic about my grayscale. I believe in having details in your whites, details in your blacks, and just having every tone in between. Like I really do. That's how I've always been with black and white. So maybe I'm just a little nuts. But then again, I'm the guy that's watched like John Sexton tutorial videos in the darkroom and stuff like that. And you know, that's what I grew up on. So that's where I come from. So I feel like it's easy enough of a camera to use if you're not sure how to really get into something. It has a lot more camera to it if you want to grow with it. It has a lot of tools in it if you're already experienced and want to have those tools. It's not a hard thing to carry around. It's very well built, and the image quality is fantastic. So I'm having a hard time trying to think of something as a hate. Maybe the stabilization if you wanted it. But I almost wonder, what could you do to this Fuji to make this even better for the 6th version? I don't know. I really don't know. It seems like this was a stretch to come out with something from the F version. There's not that much different aside from the screen, some video functionality, and the lens. I don't know, guys. Well, let me know down below if you guys have any of the X100 series. Let me know what you think about. Let me know what series you have, the S, the T, the V, the F, the Elemental P. Let me know down below which one you have. Let me know if you're a rangefinder person and what you think about this, from shooting from like an actual rangefinder to this, which is kind of like a rangefinder. And I think that, you know, this is one of those cameras that doesn't have the hype behind it, where people are constantly talking about full frame. People are constantly talking about the frames per second that are going on out there and 8K video and stuff like that. But they overlook these cameras, and I think these are the ones to keep an eye on. This is the stuff that really gets you into a different headspace of shooting, and it comes through on your images. So if you enjoy the camera enough to pick it up again and want to keep using it, there's no feature more priceless to me than that. And that's what I get with the X100V. So I'm sorry if this seemed like a little bit of clickbait with the hate in the title or whatever, but like I've said, I'm only sharing my insights with gear I actually own and use and rely on and enjoy. I mean, I wouldn't invest my time, money, and energy into gear that I'm just trying out. This isn't stuff that I get loaned and then reviewed and then, you know, whatever for a few days. Like, this is stuff that I'm using extensively. So I hope these videos are helping you guys out. The Z9 video went over really well, so I thought I'd do another one for this. Let me know down below what you guys are shooting with, what you're psyched about. If there's something you would like me to touch on gear-wise, let me know in the comments. Don't forget that like helps this video and my channel out a lot. Subscribe, the bell, all the good stuff. You can follow me at LastXWitness on all social. Check out my work on Instagram. Yell at me on Twitter. Blah 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 blah. All right. Yeah, I think that's it. Click one of my videos. I'll see you guys soon.